It was late in the evening when the sun had almost set behind the trees. The streets of the small town were quiet, and only a few cars passed by. A shiny black car, a luxury model, moved quickly on the road. Inside sat Mr. Johnson, a rich businessman known all over the city. He was dressed in a neat black suit and looked at his watch again and again. He was already late for a very important meeting. Suddenly, the car gave a loud sound and then it stopped moving smoothly. Mr. Johnson pulled over to the side of the road. He stepped out angrily and saw what had happened. One of the tires was completely flat. The businessman frowned. His shoes were polished, his suit was expensive, and his hands had never touched tools for such work. He looked around, but the road was empty. There was no driver, no assistant, and no one to call quickly. He sighed loudly. Why today of all days? I cannot believe this. As he stood there wondering what to do, a young boy appeared in the distance. The boy looked about 14 or 15 years old. He was carrying a worn-out school bag and wearing old sneakers. His clothes were simple, but his eyes were sharp and full of energy. He noticed the car stopped on the side and walked closer with curiosity. "Sir, do you need help?" the boy asked politely. Mr. Johnson looked at him with surprise. He was not used to strangers, especially children, offering him anything. He shook his head at first. No, this is not work for a boy like you. But the boy did not move away. Instead, he put his school bag down and came closer. "I can fix it. I've helped my uncle at the garage many times. It's only a flat tire. I can change it quickly for you." The millionaire raised an eyebrow. He studied the boy carefully. The child's clothes were not new, his shoes were dusty, but there was confidence in his voice. Mr. Johnson hesitated. He was late, tired, and annoyed, but something about the boy made him pause. "Do you even know what you're doing?" he asked sharply. The boy gave a small smile. "Yes, sir, trust me. I can handle it." There was silence for a moment. Cars passed by in the distance, but no one stopped. Finally, Mr. Johnson stepped aside and waved his hand. "Fine, let's see what you can do." The boy wasted no time. He took out the spare tire and the jack with strong hands. Even though he was young, his movements showed he had done this before. Mr. Johnson stood back watching. He thought the boy would give up halfway, but to his surprise, the boy worked with focus. As he loosened the bolts, the boy began to talk. "My name is Marcus," he said. "I live down the street with my mother. She works long hours at the hospital. Sometimes I help her by earning a little money fixing bicycles or helping my uncle at his workshop." Mr. Johnson listened, though he did not reply. Marcus continued, his voice calm but full of truth. "One day I want to be an engineer. I like machines. I like to see how they work, how they can be fixed. That's why I don't mind helping with things like this. I learn something every time." The millionaire was not used to such talk from a boy. Most children he knew came from rich families like his business partners. They played video games, wore expensive clothes, and cared only about fun. But here was a boy, young and poor, speaking with dreams in his eyes. The jack slipped once and the car tilted dangerously. Mr. Johnson gasped, ready to shout, but Marcus quickly adjusted it. His hands were steady, his face calm. "Don't worry, sir. It's under control," he said. Mr. Johnson folded his arms. "You're not afraid?" Marcus shook his head. "If I get afraid, I will make mistakes. My mom always tells me, stay calm and you can solve any problem." Those words struck something in Mr. Johnson's heart. It had been years since anyone had spoken to him with such simplicity and wisdom. After a few more minutes, Marcus finished tightening the last bolt. He stood up, wiped his hands on his old trousers, and smiled. "It's done, sir. You can drive safely now." Mr. Johnson looked at the car, then at the boy. He could not believe his eyes. The young boy had done what he himself could not. The businessman reached into his pocket, pulled out a wallet full of cash, and said, "Here, take this. You've earned it." Marcus shook his head slowly. "No, sir. I didn't do it for money. Just promise me you'll help someone else when they need it. That's all I ask." The words left Mr. Johnson speechless. No one had ever refused his money before. He felt a strange respect rising for this boy who had nothing but still gave everything. As Marcus picked up his school bag and started walking away, Mr. Johnson stood frozen by his car. He realized that this simple roadside meeting might be more important than the meeting he was rushing to. Something deep inside told him his life was about to change forever. Marcus walked away with his school bag slung over his shoulder, leaving the businessman standing beside his car. Mr. Johnson sat inside, but he didn't drive away immediately. Instead, he kept watching the boy's fading figure in the rearview mirror. His heart was heavy with thoughts he couldn't explain. For the first time in years, someone had looked him in the eye and refused his money. Mr. Johnson was a man used to control. People always bowed their heads, smiled at him, and accepted his money without question. But this boy, Marcus, had walked away with dignity. It felt strange. It felt powerful. Finally, Mr. Johnson started his car and drove away. But the face of Marcus stayed in his mind all night. Even during his important meeting, he caught himself thinking of the boy's steady hands, his calm voice, and that one sentence, "Just promise me you'll help someone else when they need it." The next morning, Marcus returned to his normal life. His school bag was filled with old books, some pages already torn, but he treated them with care. His school was small with cracked walls and broken windows, yet Marcus entered the classroom with a bright smile. His teacher, Mrs. Green, noticed his tired eyes. "Marcus, did you stay up late again?" she asked kindly. "Yes, ma'am," he admitted. "I was helping my mother finish some chores. She came home late from the hospital." Mrs. Green sighed. She knew Marcus's life was hard. His mother worked double shifts as a nurse to keep food on the table. But what impressed everyone was that Marcus never complained. He was always helpful, always respectful, and always full of hope. During break, Marcus sat alone under a tree, fixing an old bicycle chain for one of his classmates. He had no tools except a small kit his uncle had given him, yet his fingers worked with surprising skill. His friends often laughed, calling him the little mechanic, but Marcus didn't mind. Every broken chain, every rusty screw was a chance to learn. Meanwhile, Mr. Johnson's life looked very different. He returned to his tall glass office building where assistants rushed to greet him. Expensive coffee was placed on his desk and reports piled high in front of him. But his mind was not on business. He found himself staring out the window thinking about Marcus. He picked up the phone and called his driver. "Do you remember the road where I had the flat tire yesterday?" "Yes, sir," the driver replied. "Find out about that boy who helped me," Mr. Johnson ordered. The driver was surprised. "Sir, he looked like just a schoolboy." "Find out anyway," Mr. Johnson said firmly. 2 days later, as Marcus walked home from school, he noticed a black car slowly following him. His heart raced, but soon the driver stepped out and introduced himself. "I work for Mr. Johnson, the man you helped the other evening." "He wants to speak with you," Marcus froze. He didn't expect to see the businessman again. "Is he angry with me?" he asked. The driver chuckled. "No, young man. He is very interested in you." Cautiously, Marcus agreed and got into the car. They drove through wide streets he had never seen before, passing houses bigger than schools and gardens that looked like parks. His eyes widened as the car finally stopped in front of a giant mansion. Inside, the mansion sparkled with marble floors, golden chandeliers, and paintings that looked older than Marcus's entire neighborhood. He felt small, almost lost in the large halls. Then he saw Mr. Johnson walking toward him, still dressed in his elegant suit. "Marcus," the businessman greeted warmly. "I am glad you came." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "I hope I didn't cause you trouble, sir." Mr. Johnson shook his head. "On the contrary, you gave me something I did not expect. You reminded me of values I had forgotten. Tell me, boy, why did you refuse my money?" Marcus looked down at his worn sneakers, then raised his eyes with honesty. "Because, sir, life is not always about money. My mother says kindness is the best gift. If I take money every time I help, then I help for the wrong reason." The room fell silent. Mr. Johnson was touched more than he could admit. His chest tightened, realizing how different this boy was from the people he met daily. They sat together for a while, and Mr. Johnson asked about Marcus's life. The boy explained how his mother worked day and night, how he dreamed of studying machines, and how he wished to become an engineer to build something meaningful one day. Mr. Johnson leaned back in his chair, studying the boy's determined face. He saw more courage in Marcus than in most grown men he knew. The boy had little, yet he carried himself with honor. Finally, Mr. Johnson said, "Marcus, I want to see where you live. Will you allow me?" Marcus was shocked. No rich man had ever asked to visit his neighborhood, but his heart was pure and he nodded. "Yes, sir. If you don't mind, I can take you there tomorrow." Mr. Johnson smiled faintly. "Tomorrow it is." As Marcus left the mansion that evening, he felt confused. Why would a man so powerful care about a boy like him? But deep inside, he sensed that something big was about to happen. At the same time, Mr. Johnson stood by his window, looking out at the night sky. For years, his life had been about profits, contracts, and luxury. Yet one boy's act of kindness had shaken his world. He whispered to himself, "This boy may just change my life." And neither of them knew. The real story had only just begun. The next afternoon, Marcus waited nervously at the corner of his street. His neighborhood looked nothing like the rich side of town. The roads were cracked, small shops leaned against each other, and children played with old balls near broken fences. Marcus had grown up here all his life, but today he felt embarrassed. Would Mr. Johnson, the man with marble floors and shiny cars, really want to see this place? Soon, the black luxury car appeared, moving slowly down the narrow lane. Neighbors stopped to stare. They had never seen such a car here before. When the door opened and Mr. Johnson stepped out in his neat suit, whispers ran through the street. Marcus hurried forward. "Sir, this way," he said quietly. Mr. Johnson followed, his polished shoes stepping carefully on the uneven ground. He noticed the old houses, the clotheslines with worn shirts, and the smell of street food cooking in small pots. It was a world far from his own, yet he walked without complaint, his eyes sharp with curiosity. Finally, Marcus stopped in front of a small house with a broken gate. The walls were faded and the roof had patches where rain sometimes leaked through. Marcus opened the door and let him inside. The house was simple, just 2 small rooms. The furniture was old, but the space was clean. On the table sat a stack of medical bills, and on the wall hung a photo of Marcus as a child with his mother. "Sir, this is my home," Marcus said softly. Mr. Johnson looked around and felt a lump in his throat. He had lived his entire life surrounded by luxury, yet this poor home carried a warmth he hadn't felt in years. Just then the front door opened, and Marcus's mother walked in. She wore a faded nurse's uniform, her face tired but kind. She froze when she saw the stranger in her house. "Marcus, who is this man?" she asked quickly, her voice worried. Before Marcus could reply, Mr. Johnson stepped forward politely. "Ma'am, my name is Richard Johnson. Your son helped me when I was stranded on the road. He impressed me more than anyone I have met in years. I wanted to thank him and to meet the mother who raised such a boy." His words made her pause. She set her bag down and smiled faintly. "You're too kind." Marcus only did what he thought was right. They sat together, and soon cups of tea were served in small cracked mugs. Mr. Johnson, who was used to crystal glasses and golden spoons, held the chipped cup carefully. The taste was simple but warm, and he found himself strangely comforted. As they talked, he learned more about Marcus's life. The boy's father had passed away when he was little. Since then, his mother had worked long hours as a nurse, sometimes coming home past midnight. Marcus often stayed awake to make sure she ate before she slept. He studied under the dim light of a single lamp, and when his school bag tore, he stitched it himself. Mr. Johnson listened silently. Every word pulled at his heart. He had always believed success meant climbing higher, owning more, and never looking back. But here was a boy who had nothing yet lived with strength and pride. While they were speaking, Marcus went outside to bring in some laundry. Suddenly, a loud shout came from the street. A group of older boys had surrounded a little child, teasing him and trying to take away his toy. Marcus rushed forward without thinking. "Leave him alone," he shouted. The bullies laughed. "What will you do, Marcus? You're just a skinny kid." But Marcus stood firm. "If you touch him again, you'll answer to me." The older boys stepped closer, their faces hard. Mr. Johnson had followed to the door and saw everything. His first instinct was to call someone for help, but then he stopped. He wanted to see what Marcus would do. The younger boy clung to Marcus's arm, tears running down his cheeks. Marcus didn't back away. Instead, he looked the bullies straight in the eyes. "You think strength is about size? It's not. Real strength is standing up for what's right." Something in his voice carried power. The bullies hesitated, then muttered and walked away, leaving the child unharmed. Marcus knelt down, handed the toy back to the little boy, and said gently, "Don't cry. Always protect what belongs to you." Mr. Johnson was stunned. This was no ordinary teenager. This was a leader in the making. That evening, as the sky turned dark, Mr. Johnson prepared to leave. Marcus and his mother walked him to the gate. Before stepping into his car, the businessman turned to them. Marcus, he said slowly, I have lived many years in wealth, but today I saw more courage and honesty than I have seen in boardrooms full of powerful men. You are different. You are rare. And I believe you can achieve great things. Marcus looked down, embarrassed. I just do what my mother taught me, sir. Mr. Johnson smiled faintly. That teaching is worth more than gold. He climbed into his car, but his heart was not the same as when he had arrived. Driving away, he whispered to himself, This boy is a treasure, and I cannot let his potential go to waste. That night, Mr. Johnson couldn't sleep. The image of Marcus standing tall against the bullies replayed in his mind. The memory of the small, warm house filled with love would not leave him. For the first time in years, he asked himself, what is the true meaning of success? And deep inside, he knew, helping this boy might be the answer. The next morning, Marcus walked to school with his usual bag and worn-out sneakers. The world looked the same, dusty streets, small shops, children running barefoot. But for him, something felt different. A man as powerful as Mr. Johnson had walked into his home, had sat at their small table, and had spoken to his mother with respect. Marcus wondered if he would ever see him again. At the same time, in his mansion across town, Mr. Johnson was pacing in his study. His thoughts had been restless all night. He kept asking himself one question. Was Marcus truly unique, or was he just another boy putting on a good face? Mr. Johnson had seen many people act humble in front of him, only to show greed later. If Marcus was different, then helping him would not be a waste. But to know the truth, Mr. Johnson decided he had to test him. That afternoon, as Marcus returned from school, the black luxury car appeared once more. The driver lowered the window and called out, Marcus, Mr. Johnson would like to see you again. Marcus's heart jumped. He followed quickly, and soon he was sitting once more in the large mansion, staring at the marble floors and glittering chandeliers. Mr. Johnson leaned back in his chair, his eyes sharp but calm. Marcus, he began, yesterday I saw something that impressed me. You stood up for a younger child against bullies. Not many your age would do that. But I must ask why. You could have been hurt. Marcus thought for a moment, then answered softly, Because, sir, if we stay silent when someone is bullied, then we are no better than the bullies. My mother says if you can protect, then you must. Mr. Johnson nodded slowly. The answer carried no fear, only truth. But he wasn't finished. He wanted to see more. Marcus, he said, I want to offer you something. Here is some money. You can use it to buy new shoes, new books, or anything you want. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a large amount of cash, far more than Marcus had ever seen. The boy stared at it in shock. His hands itched to touch it, but his heart held back. After a long silence, Marcus pushed the envelope back. Thank you, sir, but I cannot take this. If I earn money one day, I want it to be from my own hard work. Please don't misunderstand me, but if I accept this now, I will feel weak inside. Mr. Johnson studied him carefully. Most people would have snatched the money in seconds. Yet this boy refused again. A faint smile touched the businessman's lips. Interesting, he whispered. But the test was not over. Mr. Johnson leaned forward. Then let me offer you something else. I can take you out of this small neighborhood today. You can live in comfort, eat fine food, and study in the best schools. All you have to do is leave your mother's house and come with me. What do you say? Marcus froze. His heart pounded. For a boy with dreams, this sounded like a golden chance. Yet his mind filled with the image of his tired mother waiting at home, the woman who had sacrificed everything for him. Slowly, Marcus shook his head. Sir, I can never leave my mother. She is all I have. If I succeed one day, I want her beside me. I cannot trade comfort for love. For a moment, silence filled the room. Mr. Johnson leaned back, his eyes glistening with something he rarely felt, respect. Then, unexpectedly, Mr. Johnson asked, Marcus, do you know who I am? The boy blinked. You are a rich man, sir. That's all I know. Mr. Johnson chuckled. I am more than that. I own companies, factories, and land. People listen when I speak. And yet, when my car broke down that night, none of that mattered. It was you, a boy from the streets, who helped me. That makes you greater than all the people who work under me. Marcus lowered his eyes. I only did what was right. Those words echoed in the businessman's heart. Simple, honest, pure. The meeting stretched late into the evening. They spoke about dreams, about life, about choices. Mr. Johnson found himself telling Marcus things he had never told anyone. He spoke of how wealth had made him lonely, how he had lost friends because of money, and how his heart often felt empty despite his riches. Marcus listened with quiet eyes. Then he said softly, "Sir, maybe that is why you met me. Maybe you needed someone to remind you that life is not only about money." Mr. Johnson felt his throat tighten. For a moment he wondered if fate itself had sent this boy into his life. As Marcus prepared to leave, Mr. Johnson stood at the doorway.
"Marcus, you have passed every test I set for you."
"You refused money. You refused comfort without family, and you spoke with wisdom beyond your years. I believe you are special." The boy looked surprised. "Test? You were testing me?" "Yes," Mr. Johnson admitted, "because I needed to be sure. And now I am sure." He placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder and said in a voice filled with promise, "Your kindness changed my night. Now I will change your life." Marcus walked home under the stars that night, his mind spinning with those words. He didn't fully understand what Mr. Johnson meant, but he knew something big was about to happen. The following week, Marcus tried to return to his normal routine. He woke up early, helped his mother with breakfast, and rushed to school with his old books. On the surface, nothing had changed, but inside, his heart was restless. The words of Mr. Johnson echoed again and again. "Your kindness changed my night. Now I will change your life." Marcus didn't fully understand what that meant. Was it a promise? Or just kind words spoken by a rich man? He didn't know. Still, he held on to the thought like a spark of hope. Meanwhile, in the glass towers of the city, Mr. Johnson was busy at work. But unlike other days, his meetings and contracts didn't hold his attention. His mind kept drifting to Marcus, the boy with courage, honesty, and dreams bigger than his circumstances. One evening, he sat in his office long after everyone else had left. On his desk lay a scholarship application form from a prestigious private school in the city. The school had world-class teachers, modern labs, and opportunities Marcus could never reach in his small-town classroom. Mr. Johnson whispered to himself, "This boy deserves a chance. He has the fire inside him. He only needs the right tools." The next day, Mr. Johnson arrived at Marcus's neighborhood once more. Children ran to the street pointing at the expensive car. Mothers peered out of their windows. The whole street buzzed with whispers. Inside his small house, Marcus and his mother looked at each other in surprise. "What is he doing here again?" his mother asked nervously. When Mr. Johnson entered, he greeted her respectfully. "Ma'am," he said, "I hope you don't mind my visit. I want to speak to you about your son." Marcus's mother looked worried. "Has Marcus done something wrong?" Mr. Johnson shook his head with a gentle smile. "No, on the contrary. He has done everything right. Your son is rare, honest, brave, and full of potential. I want to give him an opportunity." He placed the scholarship form on the table. "This is for one of the best schools in the city. If Marcus is accepted, his entire education will be paid for. Books, uniforms, everything. He will learn from the best, and he will have a future that matches his dreams." Marcus's mother gasped. Her hands trembled as she picked up the form. "But sir, this is too much. We cannot accept such charity." Mr. Johnson leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "This is not charity. This is an investment in a boy who deserves it. I am not helping out of pity. I am helping because Marcus has the qualities of a leader. If he is given the right chance, he can go further than anyone expects." Marcus's eyes filled with tears. He had dreamed of opportunities like this, but he had never believed they would come true. "Sir, are you sure?" "Why me?" Mr. Johnson smiled faintly. "Because you helped a stranger on the road without asking for anything. Because you stood up to bullies. Because you refused money when you needed it most. Those choices reveal character. And character is more valuable than gold." For days, Marcus prepared for the scholarship test. He studied late into the night, sometimes falling asleep over his books. His mother encouraged him with quiet pride. Mr. Johnson even sent tutors to guide him, though Marcus at first felt shy about accepting help. Finally, the day of the exam arrived. Marcus wore a clean shirt and trousers that were slightly too big, borrowed from a neighbor. He walked into the grand school building, its high gates and polished floors overwhelming him. Other students arrived in luxury cars, their parents carrying expensive bags. Some of them looked at Marcus with curiosity, even mockery. "Who is he? He doesn't belong here," one boy whispered loudly. Marcus felt his stomach twist, but he remembered his mother's words. Stay calm, and you can solve any problem. He straightened his shoulders and entered the exam hall. The test was tough. Long passages, tricky math problems, and science questions he had never seen before. But Marcus did not panic. He took a deep breath, thought carefully, and answered each question with focus. Hours passed, and when he finally put down his pencil, sweat dripped from his forehead, but his heart felt strong. Days later, the results arrived. Marcus sat with his mother as she opened the letter. Her eyes widened, and then tears spilled down her cheeks. Marcus, you did it. You passed. You've been accepted. Marcus's heart leapt. He couldn't believe it. He had won a place among the best students in the city. His dream was no longer far away. It was beginning to unfold before his eyes. That evening, Mr. Johnson visited once more. Marcus ran to him, holding the acceptance letter tightly. Sir, I made it. They accepted me. Mr. Johnson's smile was brighter than usual. I never doubted you, Marcus. This is only the first step. But remember, opportunity is a door. You must walk through it with hard work, discipline, and humility. Do that and nothing can stop you. Marcus nodded, his eyes shining. I won't waste this chance, sir. I promise. As Mr. Johnson drove away, he felt something stir in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't pride in his wealth or his success. It was pride in another human being. For Marcus, the road ahead would not be easy. But for the first time in his life, he had more than just a dream. He had a real path to follow, and behind that path stood the unlikely friendship between a boy with nothing and a millionaire with everything, proving that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can unlock the greatest future. Marcus's first day at the new school felt like stepping into another world. The tall iron gates opened into a wide courtyard filled with students in neat uniforms. The buildings were huge, with shining windows and banners that spoke of achievements in science, sports, and art. He adjusted the brand new uniform Mr. Johnson had provided for him. Though it fit well, Marcus still felt out of place. Around him, children laughed loudly, some with expensive watches on their wrists and designer bags on their shoulders. They talked about vacations, gadgets, and cars. Marcus clutched his notebook and walked quietly toward his classroom. When he entered, the chatter in the room slowed. Several eyes turned to him. A boy in the front row whispered loudly, "Who's the new kid? Looks like he doesn't belong here." Another smirked. Probably a charity case. Marcus felt his cheeks burn, but he remembered his mother's voice. Stay calm. Don't let words hurt you. Show them who you are with your actions. He sat at the back of the room, opened his notebook, and focused on the teacher. The lessons were fast and difficult. The teachers expected students to already know advanced topics. Marcus struggled at first, but he refused to give up. He stayed up late every night, reviewing notes, reading books, and solving problems again and again. One evening, when he was stuck on a tough math problem, he whispered to himself, "If I fail, I will prove them right. If I succeed, I will prove myself right." With determination, he solved it before sleeping. At school, the teasing didn't stop. During lunch, some boys blocked his way. "Hey, Marcus, tell us, do you even know how to use a fork? Or do you eat with your hands at home?" They mocked. Marcus looked at them calmly. "I eat with respect," he said, and walked away. That simple reply left them silent for a moment. He didn't fight. He didn't shout. He answered with dignity. Weeks passed, and slowly the teachers began to notice something. Marcus wasn't the loudest or the quickest, but he was steady. Every assignment was done carefully. Every test score improved. While others gave up when problems were hard, Marcus stayed behind, asking questions, trying again until he got it right. One afternoon, his science teacher, Mr. Blake, called him to the front. "Class, this is Marcus. Yesterday, he built a small working model of a water filter using only simple household items. This is creativity, this is persistence. Learn from him." The class clapped politely, though some students rolled their eyes. But for Marcus, it was the first time he felt seen, not as the poor boy, but as a student with talent. Meanwhile, Mr. Johnson watched from a distance. He often sent his driver to check on Marcus and occasionally visited the school himself. Teachers reported his progress, and each time Mr. Johnson's heart swelled with quiet pride. One day he surprised Marcus by visiting his classroom. The moment he entered, whispers spread through the students. Everyone knew this was the famous businessman whose wealth was known across the city. The teacher welcomed him, and Mr. Johnson looked at the class before resting his gaze on Marcus. "I came to see a boy who reminds me what real strength looks like," he said. Marcus's eyes widened. The students turned to look at him, shocked that the richest man they had heard about was speaking so highly of someone like him. That evening after school, Mr. Johnson spoke privately with Marcus. "I can see the challenges you are facing here. The teasing, the doubts, the pressure. But Marcus, I want you to remember one thing. You don't need to fit in. You need to stand out. Your honesty and hard work will speak louder than anything else." Marcus nodded, his eyes determined. "Sir, I will not let you down." Mr. Johnson smiled faintly. "It's not about me, Marcus. It's about you. Every time you refuse to give up, you build a future that no one can take away." The true test came during the school's annual science competition. Students were asked to design a project that could help solve a real-world problem. Many boys with rich parents bought expensive materials or hired experts to build their projects. Marcus, however, worked alone at his small desk at home. He chose to build a low-cost water purification system that poor families could use. He spent weeks experimenting with sand, charcoal, and filters. His hands grew rough, his eyes heavy from sleepless nights, but he kept working. On the day of the competition, other students displayed robots, drones, and flashy machines. Marcus quietly set up his simple device. Some laughed at its plain look, but when the judges tested it, they were amazed. Dirty water poured in from one side, and clear, drinkable water flowed out the other. "This," one judge said, "is innovation with a heart. Not just science for show, but science for life." The room filled with applause. For the first time, Marcus saw the same classmates who once mocked him looking at him with respect. That evening, Mr. Johnson visited Marcus's home again. He watched the boy sitting with his mother holding the small trophy he had won. Marcus's mother's eyes shone with tears of pride. Mr. Johnson felt something deep inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Happiness. Not the happiness of deals closed or profits gained, but the happiness of seeing potential bloom. He thought to himself, "This boy is not only changing his own life, he is changing mine too." The news of Marcus's victory in the science competition spread quickly through the school. Teachers praised him, and students who once mocked him now wanted to sit beside him, ask him questions, and even call him a friend. But Marcus didn't let the attention change him. He still walked home the same way, still helped his mother with chores, and still studied late at night under the same lamp. To Marcus, the trophy was not the end. It was just the beginning. Meanwhile, Mr. Johnson watched everything with quiet pride. He had seen Marcus face bullies, overcome struggles, and rise above doubt. Each test of character had revealed the boy's true strength. But now Mr. Johnson felt there was one last thing left to do. For years he had built wealth, companies, and a name respected in powerful circles. Yet none of it gave him the sense of fulfillment that Marcus's journey had given him. He wanted to give Marcus more than just a scholarship. He wanted to give him a future. One Saturday evening, Mr. Johnson invited Marcus and his mother to his mansion again. The grand dining room was filled with warm light, and a long table had been set with simple food chosen on purpose, so Marcus and his mother would feel at home. When they sat down, Mr. Johnson cleared his throat. His voice carried weight, but also a gentleness they had not heard before. "Marcus," he said, "and Mrs. Green, I have watched you both with respect. I have seen sacrifice, honesty, and courage. Tonight I want to give you something, not as charity, but as recognition." Marcus and his mother exchanged a nervous glance. Mr. Johnson opened a folder on the table. Inside were several documents. He slid them across to Marcus's mother. Her eyes scanned the words and she gasped, covering her mouth with her hand. "Sir, this cannot be true," she whispered. Marcus leaned over, confused. "Mom, what is it?" She looked at him, her eyes filling with tears. "Marcus, Mr. Johnson has arranged to pay for all your education, not just school but college, university, even abroad if you wish. He's setting up a trust in your name. You'll never have to worry about money for your studies again." Marcus's heart stopped. He stared at Mr. Johnson, unable to speak. Mr. Johnson continued, his voice steady. "Marcus, you once refused money because you didn't want easy gifts. I respected that. This is not a gift, it's an investment in your future. The world needs young men like you who think with honesty and act with courage. I want to give you the tools to change not only your life, but the lives of many others. Marcus shook his head, tears brimming. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say you will use it well," Mr. Johnson replied firmly. "That is all I ask." The room was silent except for the soft ticking of the clock. Finally, Marcus's mother spoke. "Mr. Johnson, I have spent years worrying about my son's future. I worked long nights so he would not fall behind. I thought I could only carry him so far. But what you're offering—" She paused, her voice breaking. "You are giving him wings." Mr. Johnson's expression softened. "No, ma'am. He already had wings. I am only helping him fly higher." That night Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay awake in his small bed, staring at the cracked ceiling, thinking of everything that had happened. Just weeks ago, he was a boy fixing bicycles and helping strangers on the roadside. Now doors he had never imagined were opening. But in his heart, he knew one thing. He couldn't let this opportunity change who he was. He whispered to himself, "I'll stay humble. I'll work hard, and one day I'll give back, just like Mr. Johnson gave to me." The next morning, Marcus surprised everyone at the local community center. He showed up with his small trophy and offered to teach younger kids what he had learned about science and machines. "If I can learn, you can too," he told them. "Never let where you come from decide where you're going." Mr. Johnson, who had quietly followed to watch, felt a deep warmth in his chest. The boy didn't wait for his future success to give back. He was already starting now. Later that week, Mr. Johnson visited Marcus's school again, but this time he wasn't there to test him. He was there to announce something greater. Standing before the students and teachers, he spoke with pride. "Many of you know Marcus," he said. "Some of you once doubted him, others mocked him. But today I want you to see him for what he truly is, a symbol of character. Because real greatness is not measured by wealth or clothes or background. It is measured by courage, honesty, and hard work. Marcus has all three. That is why I have chosen to sponsor his education, all the way until he becomes what he dreams to be." The hall erupted in applause. Marcus stood frozen, embarrassed yet proud. For the first time, he realized his story wasn't just his own anymore. It was an example for everyone around him. That evening, Mr. Johnson drove home with a rare smile. For years, his life had been about numbers and profits, but now as he looked back at Marcus's glowing face, he realized something powerful. He had found a greater purpose, and Marcus, clutching the scholarship papers against his chest, whispered silently to himself, "This is not the end. This is just the beginning." Years passed, and the boy who once walked the streets in worn sneakers grew into a confident young man. Marcus used every opportunity Mr. Johnson gave him, but he never forgot his roots. He studied harder than anyone else, often spending nights in libraries learning, experimenting, and building projects that amazed his teachers. By the time he finished school, he had become one of the top students in the city. Mr. Johnson kept his promise, sending him to one of the best engineering universities abroad. The journey was not easy. Marcus faced loneliness in a new country, new languages, and even moments of doubt. But every time he wanted to give up, he remembered his mother's tired smile and Mr. Johnson's steady words. Opportunity is a door. Walk through it with discipline and humility. And Marcus did exactly that. At the university, he built machines designed not for luxury, but for life. He created low-cost tools that farmers in poor villages could use. He developed water systems for small towns, inspired by the first filter he had built in his school competition. Professors recognized his talent, and soon, so did companies around the world. But Marcus refused job offers that promised only wealth. "I want my work to help people," he told them. "That is more important than money." Back home, Mr. Johnson watched Marcus's progress from afar. The businessman grew older, his hair graying, his steps slowing. Yet his pride in Marcus only grew stronger. He often said to his business partners, "The best investment I ever made was not in stocks or land. It was in a boy with courage." One day, an invitation arrived at Mr. Johnson's mansion. It was from Marcus. The young man was graduating with top honors, and he wanted Mr. Johnson to attend the ceremony. The old millionaire smiled as he read the letter. "Of course," he whispered. "I wouldn't miss it for the world." The graduation day was bright, the campus alive with cheers and applause. Families gathered to see their children walk across the stage. Among them sat Marcus's mother, her eyes wet with tears of joy, and beside her sat Mr. Johnson, dressed in a simple suit this time, No longer the powerful figure he once appeared, but simply a proud guardian. When Marcus's name was called, the crowd erupted in claps. He walked onto the stage, tall and confident, holding his degree. But instead of just smiling for the cameras, Marcus stepped up to the microphone. He looked at the sea of faces, then at the two people who mattered most. "My name is Marcus," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Many of you see me today as a graduate, but I want you to know where I came from. I grew up in a small house with a mother who worked day and night to keep me alive. We had little, but she gave me everything: love, discipline, and courage." He paused, glancing at his mother, who covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. "Then one evening I met a man whose car had a flat tire. I was just a boy, but I helped him. I didn't know that moment would change my life forever. That man saw something in me I didn't even see in myself. He gave me opportunities, not because I was rich or important, but because he believed in character." The audience listened in silence. Marcus's voice grew stronger. "That man is sitting here today. Mr. Johnson, you are more than a benefactor to me. You are my mentor, my second father, my guiding star. This degree is not only mine, it is yours too." The hall thundered with applause. Everyone rose to their feet. Cameras flashed, and in the front row, Mr. Johnson, the man who once measured life by profits, wiped a tear from his eye. After the ceremony, Marcus walked down to him, holding the degree. He placed it in Mr. Johnson's hands and said softly, "This belongs to you as much as it belongs to me." Mr. Johnson's voice cracked. "No, Marcus, it belongs to you. You earned it with your courage, but I will treasure this moment for the rest of my life." That evening, a celebration was held at Marcus's university. Reporters surrounded him, asking questions about his future. He answered with humility, saying, "I want to return home and use my skills to help communities like the one I grew up in. My dream is to build opportunities for others, the way someone once built opportunities for me." The story spread across newspapers and television. People admired not just his success, but his gratitude and heart. Marcus had become more than an engineer. He had become an example. Back in his small town, children who once played barefoot in dusty streets now spoke of Marcus as their hero. Parents told their kids, "If Marcus can do it, so can you." The same streets that once saw him carrying a worn-out school bag now carried his story as a light of hope. Years later, when Mr. Johnson grew too old to run his businesses, he called Marcus to his side. "Everything I built I want you to carry forward," he said. "Not as my heir, but as a leader who knows the value of kindness." Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. "I will honor you, sir. I promise," and he did. He expanded Mr. Johnson's companies, but instead of focusing only on profit, he turned them into forces for change, funding schools, building hospitals, and creating jobs for struggling families. In the end, Marcus's journey proved a timeless truth. Greatness is not born from wealth or power. It is born from courage, kindness, and the choice to stand for what is right. The boy who once fixed a stranger's flat tire had grown into a man who fixed lives, and the millionaire who once measured success in money had learned that his true legacy was not his riches, but the young man he believed in. It was not the end of a story. It was the beginning of many more.